Hi everyone, welcome to this DataSnipper training. Good to see you all here today, and good to see that everyone showed up in this webinar about DataSnipper. And in this session today is me, Candy Verbrugge. I'm an audit transformation manager at DataSnipper. Also joining Mujtaba, my colleague, who's also an audit transformation manager. And together we have over 15 years of audit experience, and therefore hoping to help you out with how to get on board with DataSnipper and how to use DataSnipper even better. And also in the call is my colleague Bas, who will be taking part of the technical side. So if you haven't done that yet, in the chat you can find some training files. I would like to ask you to download these training files, save them on your desktop, and during the session, click along. And usually we see that you get way more value out of the session when you click along. That's because you get more familiar with the tool. You will see all the features that we will show today, and it's also a great way to like explore DataSnipper and see how it can help you in your audit. So if you haven't done that yet, download the training files, save them on your desktop, and click along during the session. I would also like to ask you to go to menti.com and use this code to log in this presentation. You can also click on the link that I shared in the chat, and therefore you can also respond to the questions that we ask you. And we can have a better understanding of why you're here today in the webinar. If you have questions during this session, you can ask them with the Q&A button. You can find that on the bottom of your screen. And my colleague Muj will take care of the Q&A. We will also go over some of the questions in the session. So if you have joined the Mentimeter yet, and if you haven't done that, you can do that by going to menti.com and using this code. You can also use the link that I shared in the chat. I would like to ask you to respond to this question. How familiar are you with using DataSnipper? Maybe you have never seen it, maybe you have seen it but not used it. Maybe you have used it and you're curious to learn more, or maybe you're already an expert. And in that case, I will hand over the screen to you and you can give the presentation. No, just kidding, I will not do that. I see most of you have used it, so it's really exciting to see. And I'm sure that you will also learn something new in this session, and you will get to know, learn more about how to use DataSnipper or how to use certain features in maybe a new way that you haven't used it before. Also, a lot of people have never seen it or seen it but not used it. Well, after this session, you will definitely have seen it, and hopefully also use this because you clicked along during the session. I think we got most replies in, so I will go to the next slide. If you're not yet a client of DataSnipper and you are in the session, that's totally fine. This is, I think, the best demo that you can get because you will get a full training. But also you can reach out to our sales team by sending an email to sales@datasnipper.com or requesting a demo on our website. So what will we be covering in this session today? We will first of all talk about what is DataSnipper. Second, how you can do a DataSnipper audit and how you can use DataSnipper to make your life as an auditor a bit easier. And after that, we will discuss some next steps. So what is DataSnipper? DataSnipper is an intelligent audit platform based in Excel. So this means that it is an Excel add-in, and this is usually something that's really appreciated by our users. You don't need a separate tool. You can just use DataSnipper in your Excel that you already use for your audit work, and therefore it can really help you in your audit. DataSnipper drives an efficient audit execution and also to support you in improving your audit quality, because you have a high quality documentation, and that makes gives you time to also focus on the high risk areas in your audit. DataSnipper also facilitates an efficient review and and is at this moment already used by 150,000 auditors across the globe. So what we'll be covering in this session today, I will show you a couple of use cases. First of all, how you can do a walkthrough with manual snipping. Second, how you can do test of details with document matching. After that, we will look at some payroll procedures and how to do that with form extraction. And last but not least, we will look at some financial statement procedures and how you can do it with a table snip or final sums. So we will now go over to the demo, or like the real training part of this session, where we will click along with some, where you can click along with some documents and get to know every feature. Don't close Mentimeter yet, because we will come back to that later on in this session. So I'll first go to the first folder called Walkthrough and Test of Controls. And if you haven't done it yet, store the training files on your desktop and click along. This usually really helps in understanding the tool better. So we go to the first folder called Walkthrough and Test of Control, and we open this first Excel workbook that you come across called V4 Training, Walkthrough and Test of Control. And when opening this, you can see that this workbook opens. And if I click on the walkthrough over here, you can see I have a simplified version of the walkthrough in my Excel workbook. And I will show you how to document this with DataSnipper. So if I go to my DataSnipper ribbon, at this moment, you can see that most of the buttons are still grayed out. That's because the first step is always to import documents. You can do that with, in multiple ways. First of all, you can click on the Import Documents button. That's right over here. We will go to the first folder called Walkthrough Evidence. And we will select all the documents that you have in here, the PDF documents, and click on Open. Once I've clicked on Open, you can see that the document viewer pops up. And in here, I have a good overview of all the documents that I have imported. I can also zoom in, zoom out, or rotate the documents, or search in them if needed. This is one way to import documents. Another way to import documents is to go to your folder with the documents that you want to import. For example, the second folder with screenshots, and select the documents over there. But just to give you some background on DataSnipper, over here you can see I have a screenshot. It's actually a print screen that's made during a call with my client. And you can see that there is some information in here, but at this moment I cannot select the data. I can also not copy paste it, but that's no problem for DataSnipper. I can just select this screenshot, press Ctrl+C on my keyboard, go to my Excel workbook, and over here press Ctrl+V. DataSnipper is now noting that I am pasting one or multiple documents and is asking me if I want to import them in my Excel workbook. Let's do that. So as you can see, it's now imported in the document viewer. And DataSnipper is noting, well, the document that you imported did not contain any text. Do you want to run text recognition over the imported document? So I will click on yes for now. It will take a couple of seconds, and that means that text recognition will start running on the document. And after that, this means that I can snip the information. So, but we will come back to that later on. I'll first go to the proposal because I want to extract some data from this proposal. I want to, for example, have the supplier name here. And before having DataSnipper, I would have typed it over manually. So I would have gone to the place where I could find the supplier name, which is in this case hardware BV. And I would just have typed over in my Excel hardware BV. But because we have DataSnipper now, we don't have to do that anymore. I can just click on the blue button over here called Text Snip, and I can select the data that I want to extract. So as you can see, by just making a text snip, the information now gets taken over to my Excel workbook. I can also do that with other type of information. I can, for example, hover over this date, and you can see it gets underlined. This means that I can do a right mouse click and click on Create Snip. Same for the amount. I can, for example, select the amount here And just like that, the amount gets taken over to my Excel workbook. So it doesn't matter what I do with this workbook. If I close it, open it again, send it to my reviewer, as soon as I click on one of these cells, you can see that I get taken to the place in the document where I made the snip. So this one cell is now connected to this place in the document. As you can imagine, from a reviewer perspective, this can be very handy to do your reviews and see where information is taken from. Another advantage of the text recognition and having all the information in the document viewer is I can easily search through the information. So let's imagine I stand on the cell with the amount. You can see that the amount is being taken over here in the search bar. And by clicking on this icon, you can see every place where that certain value, so in this case the amount, shows up again. And just by hovering over these amounts, you can see, or like you get taken to the place in the documents where the information is taken from. So also the screenshot that we saw at an earlier stage that did not contain text, even for this one, I can still see, you can now see that the information is taken here. I can also snip information from there. I will just select the cells where I want the information to be placed. And I can now snip the information just by clicking on the blue button here, snip. And same for the invoice and for the bank statement. And as you can see, the snips are now created here. Let's imagine that I also want to do some control testing. I want to check, for example, if this proposal has been signed. I can go to the proposal. And here you can see there's a signature. So let's say that I either want to validate or this signature or made an exception. You can do that by using these two buttons, the validation snip and exception snip. I will first show you the validation snip. It's the green button right over here. And I can select the signature that I have here. And you can see that in my workbook, a green tick appears, which is noting or like stating out that this certain control is being validated. Same actually for the exception snip. It's the red button over here. I can select any value in my PDF document and just select the field saying there's been an exception noted, and a red cross will appear. You as an auditor will be the one that validates if either, or like that chooses if either a certain value is or a certain control is validated or an exception. And DataSnipper will just make it easy for you by selecting it and make it easier for the reviewer to see based on what kind of information a certain control is either validated or an exception has been created. So let's imagine I now want to check if, for example, the invoice matches with the order that I have received. I want to check if this amount of laptops is the same on the invoice as on the order. I then actually want to match two different places and two different documents to one certain cell. So I can do that with DataSnipper. I can, for example, make a validation snip, and I can just select the product that I have here, the laptop premium 42 times. I can also go to the order confirmation. I'll zoom in a little bit here. And here you can see that laptop premium 42 times is also delivered. So what I can do now is hold my control button on my keyboard. So I'm holding it right now and selecting this place in the document. If I now click on the cell, you can see that there are now two snips attached to this one cell. So this can be great for reconciliation purposes. Just by hovering over these snips, I can see which information is taken from which document. Something else I quickly want to show you is how to do a sum snip. So let's imagine you have this invoice. There are some amounts over here. And I want to check if the invoice is mathematically accurate. I can do that by clicking on the yellow button called sum snip and just selecting the sums, or like the figures that I have over here that I want to sum up. So as you can see, just by selecting these amounts, The amounts get taken over to my formula bar in Excel, and the result will show in the cell. And just like that, I can check the mathematical accuracy of my invoice. So we have now gone over the text snip, validation snip, exception snip, and sum snip. If you have any questions about this, please ask them in the Q&A. My colleague Mooch is monitoring the Q&A. So Mooch, over to you. I'm curious to hear if there are any questions yet coming in from the chat.
Yeah, there have been a couple of questions. They have been answered already. And as you mentioned that, there's just been one more question. What if you want to add something to the sum snip? To answer your question, Andy, you can actually hold down the control button and you can create a sum snip across the whole document, even if numbers are not subsequent. If you can also move to other documents whilst holding down the control button, you can create snips across them, and all of those numbers will be added to the same cell as the total appears on that.
Just to also show you what Mooch just explained, let's imagine that you want to sum up this amount with an amount in another document. I can select the yellow button sum snip, select the amount here, go to the other document, and what I'm doing now does not make any sense, but let's imagine I will sum it up with this amount. I can hold the control button on my keyboard, and you can see that this amount now also appears in the formula bar and therefore is summed up. So you can do this with an unlimited amount of figures, just depending on what kind of testing you do.
As a general rule, if you hold down the control button, you can add multiple snips to the same cell across multiple documents.
Okay, so good to see that you're all clicking along. We'll now go to the next part of the testing. I will go to the second folder called Test of Details and then go to the folder Invoice Testing. And we will open the Excel document over here called Document Matching 4.0. So just to give you some background, I've now shown you how to do manual snipping. Manual snipping is great for walkthroughs, test of controls maybe, but also some smaller test of details. But let's imagine you have a more larger test of details with a lot of samples and a lot of supporting documents. You may want to do it in a more automated way. So I will show you how to do that with document matching. I will open this Excel workbook, and in here you can see a simplified version of a test of details. There are actually 3 input columns at this moment, amount, date, and invoice number. And as you can see, there are 30 samples, and we want to match them with the invoices and also with the bank statements. In this document, there are already some invoices imported. You can see them over here. And as you can see, they're not structured in any way. It's not that they have the sample number or the invoice number in every one of them, but that's actually no problem for DataSnipper. So what I will do, I will go to my DataSnipper ribbon and click on Document Matching. You can see that this sidebar appears. Over here, you can also click on this link with a video that will explain you how to do document matching. So you can always refer to that later on if you need a refresher or want some more information. But for now, I will just start with creating groups. I can do that by clicking on Add Group. And the first group that I will be creating will be called Invoices. I will select all the documents that I have here and click on OK. I will also create a group with bank statements and call it bank statements. I can also import documents by clicking on import here, select the bank statement that I want to import, click on open, and select this bank statement for the document matching testing. And in case for this invoices one, you have now 30 documents imported. You can still, because the bank statement in some of the versions is still already in the workbook, you can click on the pencil here and just deselect certain documents or select them again and click on OK. So I will now select the documents that I need for my testing. This will be the invoices and the bank statements. Next step is to tell DataSnipper which of the rows is the header row. So in this case, that is row number 2. So I will change this to 2. And the reason I need to tell DataSnipper this is because the row below it will be used by DataSnipper to place the output. Next step would be to tell DataSnipper where it can find the input and where it should place the output. So in this example, I have 3 input columns. So I will also create 3 rows here. And the input can be found in column A, B, and C. So I will, in this input column, I will select A, B, and C. The output should be placed in column E, F, and G. So for the invoices, I want the output to be placed here. So I will select column A, F, and G here. And now that I have selected that, then the bank statement. For the bank statement, I want amount to be placed in column I and the invoice number in column G. And the column with the date, I will leave blank for now. And the reason for that is that the date in my general ledger is normally not the same as the date on the bank statement or the date that a certain payment is made. So I will just leave this blank for now. And just giving you some time to create these settings. In this example, we have used amount, date, and invoice number as the input columns, but this can be basically any kind of information. So always take a look at your like the general ledger of your client, see what kind of data is in there and with what kind of information you would expect an exact match with supporting documents. So this can also be other columns: supplier name, supplier number, maybe bank account number, basically any kind of information that you have in your general ledger where you expect an exact match with the supporting documents could be used as an input. So now that I have created these settings, I can click on Match All Rows. And now document matching starts running. It takes a couple of seconds, and once it is finished, it will give me a pop-up saying document matching has finished. Please use your professional judgment to validate the results. And that's an important note by DataSnipper. It's an automated tool. This means that DataSnipper does not have professional judgment. Also, it does not know your client. So you as an auditor will always need to be the one that reviews the results and that checks if everything is correct. But luckily, DataSnipper has made it very easy for you because you can just click on the blue cells, which are the text snips, and there you can see where the information is taken from, and you can take a look at the supporting documents. Same for the bank statements over here. So you may also want to add some extra tests. For example, if you want to check if this invoice is recorded in the correct period, you can, for example, add a validation snip here, saying if either this is correct or maybe not. You can also see that this cell is actually being left blank. So this may indicate that something is off. DataSnipper was not able to match this amount to the invoice, but it did match the invoice number and the date. So let's take a look at the invoice and see what it is. So as you can see, this amount is actually off by €1, and that's the reason that DataSnipper did not pick up on this amount. How document matching works is DataSnipper will search for an exact match. So DataSnipper will use this input that you have provided it with and search for an exact match in the underlying documents. And in this case, when the amount is off with €1, you can see that the amount is not matched in this cell. So what to do with this? Depending on what kind of testing you're doing, this €1 might not be like relevant to follow up on. So what you can do, because it's just a rounding error, so what you can do is you can either choose to snip it manually with a tag snip or a validation snip, or you can go back to your document matching settings. So let's imagine you have the test of details with a lot of rounding errors. Then maybe you don't want to snip everything manually. So what you can do, you can go back to your document matching settings, go for this amount. And on the right side, you can see a box with 3 dots. Once you click on that, the matching options will appear. And there are 2 matching options that I can select. I can either choose if a certain column is required. You could do that in case of, for example, if you have a lot of duplicates in amount, and then you may want to set the invoice number as a required column. DataSnipper will first search for the invoice number, but in case it does not find the invoice number, it will leave the whole row blank. So that's something you can consider, you can try out. But for this this use case that we show now, it's not relevant. What I also can show is allow differences up to 1. And by default, it's been set to 1, but I can also change this amount depending on what kind of testing I'm doing. So I can now click on OK. You can see the button has turned green, which means that the document matching options have been set. And I can again click on match all rows. DataSnipper is asking me if I think it's okay that I override the output area. Well, that's fine for me now. I did not change anything manually. And the green tick that I have created, so let's imagine another column with some extra ticks, you can see it's still there because this column is not identified as an output column. So you can see with the setting that I have now added that this amount is still being selected. So is now being selected. So this could be a way to handle a use case in case you have a lot of rounding errors. So I've now shown you document matching. I know it's a lot of information to take in when you see it for the first time. So if you have any questions, feel free to place them in the Q&A. Mooch, did you receive any questions about document matching?
I didn't, but I would encourage everyone to post any questions, as this will enhance your learning and make you that much more adept at using DataSnipper. If no questions, what I also want to add to document matching is imagine it to be really strong and intelligent, almost like a VLOOKUP, but rather than looking up the values in your Excel workbook, it looks for your inputs through the supporting documentation. And in a way, that is exactly what audit is, right? Looking for support through supporting documentation. But the difference now is DataSnipper does that for you.
Nice, very good. And just to give you some information on where can you actually use this for, I think document matching can be used for all sort of testing where you have input data, so from the general ledger of the client, and you want to match it to supporting documents. And we do that a lot in audit. Think about all kind of test of details for either expenses, but also for revenue maybe. You could also use it for accounts receivable, accounts payable, subsequent receipt testing, cutoff testing, basically anywhere where you have a sample and you want to match it to supporting documents. So think about how you could use this in your audit and where you maybe have a very extended test of detail and you want to do it in a more smarter, automated way, therefore save you time and also makes your work a lot more fun, I think. So I see some new chats coming in and Q&A, so Mooch just checking. Anything else we need to discuss for now, or can I proceed to the next test?
Can you just quickly show exactly how we define the columns where the outputs should be for document matching and also where we define the inputs?
Yeah, I can show that. So if you click on document matching, you will see over here input and output. And depending on how many documents group you add, this output columns can be more than 2 or 3. or like depending on how many source documents you have. So when applying input and output columns, you basically tell DataSnipper where it can find the information that it should be searching for in all the documents. That will be your input data. And the output columns will be the place in Excel document where you want the output to be placed. So this can be any place in your document. I hope that answers your question.
I have another question from David. The documents, who scans them in and who creates the PDFs? Just to highlight on that, as Candida mentioned earlier as well, the documents would be your supporting documents from your clients, and these can be in majority of the file formats. As explained earlier, DataSnipper is compatible with majority of them, whether they be PNGs, JPEGs, scan documents, PDFs, Word documents, or Excel. All of those, once you import them within DataSnipper, they are automatically converted into PDF and then become interactive for you.
Great. I will now go to the next test of testing. If I go back to the second folder, there's a folder here, payroll testing. And I can now click on the Excel document or open Excel document, payroll procedures example. So in this document, you can see that there are already some payslips imported. Once I scroll through these payslips, you can see that they have a very consistent format. I think that that's very common for payslips. They usually come from an internal system of the client, which means that they have a standard format. And let's imagine that for my audit, I want to extract certain information fields from these payslips, for example, the employee name, the employee number, and the gross pay. Then instead of typing it over or making manual snips here, I could also go to the option form extraction. And once I click on that, a new window will appear. There's also a video over here that you can watch later on. For now, we'll click on Get Started. And in this view, you can see on the left side of the screen the document that is imported. You can also zoom in, zoom out, rotate, or search in the document. And on the right side, we will get a preview of the results. Now, the first step for form extraction is that you need to tell DataSnipper in what kind of way the format that you have identified is being repeated. So in this case, the payslip is the format, a certain standardized format that will be repeated on all pages. So in this case, it is page. Let's imagine that these payslips would be stored in a way that they're all in separate PDF documents. In that case, I might want to choose for document. So for now, page is fine. What I can do now is I can select a field that I want to extract from this payslip. So I will first extract the name Jeremy Swan. And as you can see, once I select the name Jeremy Swan, DataSnipper is also looking at the other pages and extracting the names of the employees from the other payslips. You can click on the results and see where the information is taken from and how DataSnipper did extract it. So if I click on the name Jeremy Swan, or if I click on this blue box, you can also see that the word salary is being underlined. So this means that DataSnipper has identified the word salary as the key. And what this means is that DataSnipper will search in every page for the word salary, and will take the information that's from a certain distance from this word. So in this case, the results look fine. But let's imagine that I want to play around a little bit with the keys. If I select this number as the key, you can see that the field that is extracted is only for Jeremy Swan. So that means that this is actually not a very good key because it's not consistent in every form. So this number is probably unique for Jeremy Swan, and therefore it's only giving me one result. So this would not be a very good key. So what I need to search for is a certain words in my format that keep repeating itself. So in this case, a better key would be employee and number, for example, because I'm pretty sure that those headers will stay the same in every form. Salary is also a fine key, but just to show you how it works for now. So I get a preview of the result. This looks fine, but I also want to extract the employee number. I select this. I can also, for example, select the gross pay or the net pay, just depending on what I need for my testing. And you can now see that I have a preview of the results on the right side of the screen. And I can click on, if I'm happy with that, I can click on extract on the bottom right corner. And by clicking on extract, the information gets copied to my Excel workbook in a new tab. And with the blue cells, I hope you already recognize them and think, hey, those are some text snips created. You can click on each and every value and get taken in the PDF document to the place where the information is taken from. And just like that, I can review the results. So now that I have transferred this to my Excel workbook, I can also choose to select these cells. Click on Ctrl+C on my keyboard just to copy them. Go to another tab, for example, this testing sheet, and paste the information here with Ctrl+V. And just like that, I can also copy paste snips. And as you can see, the snips are still intact, so I can still review it and see where the information is taken from. We have now talked about a form extraction. Are there any questions about form extraction? And which maybe you know if there are some questions came in from the chat about form extraction so far.
Yeah, there have been a couple of questions. So with form extraction, I think there was one question about what's the difference between per page and per document. I've already answered that in there. I think one other question, yeah, that's been answered already, but just to reiterate, per page means that even if you have documents with multiple pages, the extraction criteria would be applied across all pages. However, if you select per document, then it will only apply the extraction criteria once per document, regardless of the page numbers.
And same applies for line. So sometimes you get the question, where in what cases would you use repeat per line? So let's imagine you have a bank statement and you want to extract all the payments from there. That could be a reason to select line. Just make sure that in the bank statement you have some sort of wording that stays consistent in every line. And then you could also use form extraction for a bank statement, for example. I usually also get the question, where else can we actually use this for? So form extraction is great for all kinds of documents that have a consistent format that is repeating itself. So think about documents that come from an internal system from the client. So for example, pay slips that come from a salary system, also revenue invoices that come from an internal revenue system from the client. That could also be a good use case for form extraction. Another example could be tax forms. Usually that's something that needs to be filled in for the government. So that has a certain format that is quite consistent. So yeah, that could also be a good use case for form extraction. Any other questions coming in from the chat, Mooch?
I think one question just came up. Is there a different layout for form extraction by rows instead of columns?
In that, what would you mean in a different? I'm not quite sure what the question is.
So to answer your question, Rogelio, I hope I said the name right. I think with form extraction, the idea is if you define your repetition criteria, whether by line, per page, or by document itself. How it works is dependent on the key or the anchor point that you define, and then the distance from it. So form extraction actually works in a physical space on the documents that you have, and based on what you define as your anchor point / key, it will calculate the exact distance from it to the hypothetical box that you create, and then it will apply that repetition criteria across the documents pages or lines, and if it meets that criteria, then it will give you the result that you're looking for.
Great. Well, so good that we have covered some questions here. We will now go to the next part of this training. It's about financial statement procedures. It's the third folder that we have here called trial balance to FS reconciliation. And I will open this Excel document called DataSnipper V4 Training Materials Trial Balance Reconciliation. And in here, you can see that there are already some documents imported. You may recognize this from your own clients. You request them a trial balance report, and they send it to you in PDF, but you actually need the information in Excel. It can be very time consuming to go back to your client, request it again, or type over the information manually. We don't like that in DataSnipper. So what we came up with is a table snip. It's a purple snip over here, or like purple button called table snip. And once it's selected, I can select the table that I have in my supporting documents. So just by holding my left mouse click, I can drag a box over the table, and you can see that the information automatically gets extracted to my Excel workbook. I can also tailor the information a little bit depending on how I need the formatting. So maybe I want to add an extra column here to separate the prior year, like the comparing figures with the current year figures. I can also choose to add a column here or remove a column maybe if needed, just to tailor the table a little bit to my needs. I can also, if I click on the table snip, you can see in the top right corner there are 3 dots. And if I click on them, I also have the option to edit the rows. Then I can basically remove certain rows, but also add new ones. And I also have the option to repeat this table snip for other pages as well. And I can choose for which pages I want to repeat the snip for. And just like that, I can take over the information to my Excel, ready to use it for reconciliation purposes, or maybe for analytical procedures. Doesn't matter where I use it for. The information is now here in my Excel. I also get this question a lot from auditors. Can I also change the formatting of the cells? Yes, you can. You can just tailor it depending on what kind of formatting you need. So just like that, you can take the information to your Excel. Quickly passing to see if there are questions about the table snip, Mooch.
Just quickly, one question came in, Raluca. So the edit rows optionality is version 4 update. So if you are running version 3, then you won't have edit rows in it. You can only edit columns in that. But in version 4, you can edit the rows.
Yeah, so if you're if you're in the table snip and you see you don't see the edit rows option here, reach out to your customer success team or your IT team to see if you can get the new version, because I think the new version has some very nice features in it. It's definitely worth updating the version to get the best use of the tool and get the most out of the tool.
And one more question just came through. Once you have extracted or created a snip, then you can actually interact or change formatting within your Excel workbook, and it won't change the linkage or hyperlinks to the document itself, nor the actual snips that you created under it.
I can also show that in the walkthrough that we covered earlier. If I want to add something in here, say, for example, add a tick or say correct, that doesn't influence the snips that I've created. Same for the formatting. If I want to change this formatting, for example, to euros or dollars or whatever. This does not impact the snip that you have created. Same for the table snip, same for all the snips. Any more questions, Mooch?
No more.
Okay, great. Then I will go to the next procedure. It's an annual report that I have over here. And I want to check some mathematical accuracy procedures on this annual report. I can do that by clicking on Find All Sums. It's the button right over here. And if I click on it, DataSnipper will start analyzing the document and search for all horizontal and vertical sums in the document. And this is probably a feature where I get asked a lot of times, oh, can you show me again how it works? It's one of the most easy features of DataSnipper. I would say you just select the document, click on Find All Sums. You don't need to do any settings. DataSnipper will do the work for you. So now that I have the results over here, there you can see that there are some snips created. The blue snips indicate the totals and the yellow snips indicate the sums. So in here you can see all the sums that DataSnipper has identified. But what I need to look out for when reviewing this is I need to look at the columns that are not yet snipped. So for example, the column over here does not contain any snips yet. And this may indicate that something is off. So let's take a look at what it is. I can click on the yellow button here, Sum Snip, and create a sum snip manually over here. So as you can see, the amount is not mathematically accurate. So this may be a reason to create an exception snip, point this out to my reviewer, tell them, well, I've noted an exception, this needs to be followed up by the client. And this is also where we can come across something else about DataSnipper. Let's imagine you want to communicate to your client, well, this is an exception that I've noted. If you send over this workbook to your client, they will probably not have DataSnipper. So what they will see is they will see this. They will see only the Excel workbook and they will not see the document viewer with the snips that you have created. Same counts for a colleague that does not have DataSnipper yet. If you come across a colleague that is saying, well, I don't see the snips that you have made, then that's probably because they don't have DataSnipper yet. So then you can let them know that this is a must-have feature and that they really need to download it. So what I want to do if I want to send this to my client, I may want to add a comment. I can do that with the comment box over here. And I can add a comment in this PDF document saying, please adjust the amount. And just like that, I can add a comment. The next step would be that I can click on the export button right over here. I can select the document that I want to export, for example, this annual report, and I can click on export with snips and comments. And by clicking on OK, the document gets exported to a PDF document with all the snips and comments in it. And it means that I can save it on my desktop, for example, and send it over to my client. I have now shown you final sums and also the comment functionality and export functionality. Are there any questions about this? Please ask them in the chat or in the Q&A. Mooch, any questions about this part coming in?
Yeah, we've just got one question from Suren. Suren, so how it works with the find all sums is that it looks for numbers that are adjacent to each other, and if there's a total, then it creates the snip. To highlight if something is not adding up to another thing, then it leaves that as empty or without any highlight, thereby drawing your attention. However, to your point, you're absolutely right. This could make your job even easier going forward. So we also have the financial statement suite, and the new version of it that we're working on, which is going to be introduced very soon, actually applies all those tick marks automatically throughout the entire document, and you won't have to do anything with that.
Great. And quickly touching upon that, when you review this, don't look too much at this part of the snips created, but mainly focus on scrolling through the document and seeing, okay, this is not yet snipped, what is off here? And those are the ones, like the amounts and the columns that are not snipped in this document are the ones you want to focus on, because for these ones, you know that they are probably correct. If DataSnipper has picked up on the exam correctly, then you know that for this one that it's correct. But these are the ones that you need to focus on, the ones that do not have the snips in it yet.
Paolo, to your question as well, indeed, this is an enhancement that is coming out. So in the financial statement suite, which is an additional feature, which is unfortunately not part of this webinar, this is more full product, but in that financial statement suite, you have that enhancement already existing, which automatically finds the exceptions for you.
I will now quickly touch upon some document management features in the tool. We have covered all the features that are shown over here, but not yet the features that are shown over here. I have shown you the export functionality where you can export with snips and comments. There's also the possibility to remove documents from your file. You can do that by using this 3 different options. First of all, you can choose which documents you want to remove. And in here you can also see the amount of snips that I have created. So for example, this document, I have not created any snips. So before sending it to my reviewer, I may want to exclude it because it might not be relevant. If I remove documents from my file, it will not remove the snips that I've made in the Excel document. So don't worry about any data getting lost. The only thing that will be no longer visible is the link to the cells, or sorry, the link to the document. So you will no longer see the document viewer. But the content that you have snipped in Excel will stay there. There's also a possibility to remove pages without snips or remove pages without exception snips. There's also the possibility to redact text. I will show you how to do that. Let's imagine your client sends over information that may be confidential and that you don't want to include in your file. Clients should be the ones that remove the information from there or redact it, but sometimes they forget about it, and then you as an auditor need to do that. I can do that with the redact text option. Select the information that I want to redact and drag a black box over it. Right now I can still move the box in case I need the information, but if I click on do a left mouse click, I can click on, do a right mouse click, I can click on apply all redactions. And now this black box is here and I can no longer move it. And I can also no longer search up the information that's in there. So this is also good to know when we're doing some text redaction. Once you have applied this, it will no longer be accessible, and therefore make sure that you really don't need information anymore. We also have some other functionalities built in. So in some cases, if you have a lot of test of details or a lot of supporting documents imported in your file, we have noted that your Excel can become a bit slower, but we have built in some features to cover that. First of all, I would always like to encourage you to take a look at the documents that you have imported and remove documents if you no longer need them. This will immediately reduce the size of your file and also give a better overview of the documents that you do need. But if you have tried that and your Excel is slow, you can also choose to click on compress import documents. And by clicking on that, the documents that you have imported in your Excel file will become compressed without losing quality of the data. So this can be a very good way to reduce the size of your workbook. Normally, we see a compression rate between 20 and 50%, so it can really help you in reducing the size of your file. In this case, 39% looks good. Oh, fine. Let's imagine you have tried removing documents and compressing your importing documents. Your Excel workbook is still slow. You can, technically, there is no limit on the amount of documents that you can import. But practically, there's always a limit because it also depends on the speed of your machine and other things. So if you have tried this, you can also choose to exclude PDFs from your Excel file. Excel file. So by default, when you import documents, they are being transferred to PDF and they are being stored in your Excel file. You can also choose to exclude them. In that case, you need to select which documents you want to exclude. And you need to choose a location where you want to share it. So this is an option. Make sure that when you use this option, that you can only do it when that you need to select the location where you want to store the files, and make sure that the files stay there, do not get moved or removed, and also that your reviewer has access to those files. Otherwise, they will not be able to see the snips that you made. So keep that in mind when using this functionality. Also quickly touching upon the Learn button. There's a Learn button over here. And once you click on that, you will see some use cases and features that we have. And if you click on those, you will immediately get taken to our knowledge base. So for example, test of details, yeah, we did work on some use cases. They're audit focused. So if you're not in audit, this is something we are currently working on. But for now, those are audit use cases. Click on the use cases and you can get some more information about where you can use DataSnipper for. We, for example, have this use case about cache confirmations, where we have a short video explaining how it works, but also some examples, some templates, and a step-by-step description on how to get started. So this can be very useful to get inspiration on where to use DataSnipper for, but also to get a quick refresher on how every feature works. I would also strongly like to encourage you to sign up for the Learn track. You will receive a couple of emails with some tips and tricks on how to use DataSnipper even better. Then also quickly touching upon the feedback button. Once you click on that, you get taken to our feedback platform. We really appreciate the feedback that we receive from our users, and we are constantly working on improving the product. So we really appreciate it. If you have any feedback, place them on our feedback portal. You can also vote on feedback that came in from other auditors as well. And this will also be the priority list for our developers, where they will be working on next. So quite exciting stuff. Seeing that we have 3 minutes left on the clock, I will quickly go back to my Menti.
Candida, can you quickly show how you redacted text again?
Yeah, I can show that. Thanks, Mooch. So I will show it on this annual report again. Let's imagine on this page, I want to redact some of the text here again. I can click on remove and then click on redact text and just drag a box over the information that I want to redact. And just like that, I can redact it. Don't forget to do right mouse click on the box. See, it's already and click on apply all redactions. And then now the boxes can no longer be moved. Hope that answers the question. And for everyone that attended this training, thank you a lot for attending the training. I'm really curious to hear from you what you've learned or what you are very excited to use DataSnipper for in your testing. And if you don't know yet where you will be using it for, then this can also be a good way to get inspired about how you can, for what other procedures you would use DataSnipper. I see some things coming in, control testing, test of details. That's all very good. Also some walkthroughs, confirmation vouching. Yeah, that's definitely a strong use case over here. You could use like confirmation vouching either with form extraction or also with document matching, depending on how they are structured. Accruals, very good one. It's very normally quite complicated to document that in a structured way and also to document in a way where it's easy to review. So if you use DataSnipper, I think you can definitely benefit from that. So great to see all these results coming in. Seeing that we have one more minute on the clock, I would like to say thank you all for attending this training. I hope Mooch could answer all your questions, and if not, we will come back to you maybe with an email just to answer your question. Thanks a lot for attending, and yeah, next step is to talk about this within your team, see where you can use DataSnipper, discuss with each other, well, what kind of procedures do we do that take up a lot of time and that we want to do in a more smart and automated way. That's really where you get started with DataSnipper, by discussing it in your team and see where you can, how you can make great use of the tool.
Thanks, everyone. Just to lastly add as well, the training has been recorded and this would be shared with as well, just in case anyone missed anything.
Thanks, Mooch, and thank you all for attending.